everybody, it's Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and this is kind of down my alley because I'm a retired teacher, so it has interested me what's been going on with the nationwide college admissions scam. Yeah, it's been going on. Now, first of all, I have to tell you that as a teacher, I'm not that thrilled with the SAT and the ACT. I understand, that people put a lot of confidence in them. However, if you've been following them, they've actually gone through a lot of transitions, and they found out that a few years ago, I can't remember exactly how long ago it's been, but a few years ago, they were having problems with students doing so poorly that colleges couldn't really admit them because they didn't do well enough to get into their colleges. But yet the colleges needed new students because students provide money. And so they fudged the entire SAT and ACT scores. Well, not exactly fudged. They revised them. Let's say it that way. That was the first thing they did, is they revised them. So if you had scores before a certain date and you had scores after a certain date, you couldn't say, oh, I got a 1200 on my score, and then turn around and say, I got a 1200 later. That meant that it was watered down. Okay. So a 1200 originally, back in the olden days when it first came out, was a much higher standard than the 1200 after they revised it. A lot of people don't know that's what happened, but that's what was going on. And then after that, because they needed to do it again, they had to kind of cover their tracks a little. And so what they did was they added that third part, and that ended up making the scores so you couldn't say, originally it was 800 and 800, so the most you could get was 1600. Well, now a perfect score is 2400 because there's three parts. But that was done, in my opinion, that was done to kind of cover the fact that they were actually meddling with it and dumbing it down a little bit. That's what I think. So, the colleges needed people, but they didn't want to say they'd lower their standards because all of these big name colleges, they had certain cutoff points, and you had to have a certain amount for your SATs or you couldn't go into that college, and they wouldn't even consider your application. The whole SAT thing, if you look back and you study its history, very questionable. So I'm not extremely impressed by SAT scores, even though I had pretty decent SAT scores back in the day when it was the harder test. So I do understand that people put a lot of stock in them, and it needs to be something kind of standardized across the entire nation for colleges to be able to compare kids with. But there have been some questionable things about it in the past. Anyway, putting all that aside, though, this has turned out to be, a hornet's nest that's not done yet. And if you go through, in case you don't know what's going on, it was basically a racketeering thing where they would sit down and they had somebody who would take tests for kids. They worked with coaches to try to get their kids in under an athletic type of inroad into the school. And then once the kid was in, then they would just, join the team for a day or something like that, or not even show up and just quit altogether. And so they were still in the school, in the college, but they weren't on the team then. So it was really a big scam that was going on between them. And this was, major places, Yale, Stanford, USC, Wake Forest, and Georgetown, among others. And so this was pretty huge, and it is still unfolding. So this is not over. By the way, all this stuff was sealed and has just been unsealed. Okay, these were some sealed indictments. Now, I know there's a lot of skepticism about sealed indictments, but there really are more sealed indictments out there since the Trump administration has taken over. So yes, there is a significant amount of them. How many exactly, I'm not sure. And the reason I say that is because although there is a number floating around, that doesn't necessarily mean those are indictments, because there are also sealed warrants, there are sealed documents, they could be sealed testimony of people, it could be sealed items, like Anthony Weiner's laptop was sealed for a time and then it was unsealed on May 16th of last year. And so it could be something like that. There could be many of those. But then again, many people can be named on one indictment. So it's hard for us to really know for sure exactly how many people out of this even are going to end up being indicted and actually being convicted of the crimes. Because remember, an indictment just accuses the person of being guilty. It does not say they are guilty, but it says that it needs to go to a regular trial, a criminal trial, so that they can be tried, the evidence can be presented, both sides can argue in it. Because remember, in a grand jury, both sides do not argue. It is evidence presented to the grand jury, and then the grand jury decides if there's probable cause. And it doesn't have to be unanimous. It can be just a majority vote with the grand jury members. So that's why there's a lesser standard for the grand jury, because it is not a conviction. It's just an indictment. So it's an accusation of guilt. So that's something to keep in mind too. And as always, people are considered innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. So let's keep that in mind. But these are the people, and notice the word allegedly. I like to come to the Justice Department website to see things like this, because I know that I'm getting a straight scoop. I'm not really getting the bias reporting out there from either side. They're just saying, these are the facts. Just the facts, ma'am. And I wonder how many of you are old enough to remember that one. Anyway, these are some of the people that they were talking about, and I will let you go through this on your own if you want to read about it. But essentially, it was the conspiracy involved bribing SAT and ACT exam administrators to allow a test taker, typically Rydell, to secretly take college entrance exams in place of students, or to correct the students' answers after they had taken the exam. 2, bribing university athletic coaches and administrators, including coaches at Yale, Stanford, Georgetown, and University of Southern California, and the University of Texas, to facilitate the admission of students to elite universities under the guise of being recruited as athletes. And 3, using the facade of Singer's charitable organization to conceal the nature and source of the bribes. Because what they would do is they'd collect these bribes, they would run them through this charitable organization. So essentially, it looked like the parents were donating to this charitable organization and they were getting tax breaks because of it. And this was bribe money. I mean, it's like, oh, I just can't, boggles my mind. But this was going on. Now, for many of us, we've known for a long time that the very rich could pretty much buy influence to get their child into whatever university they wanted. I mean, that's not a secret to us. It's nothing new. We're not surprised. And probably most of us are not surprised at this. But the breadth of it, I think, makes it quite impactful. College entrance exam cheating scheme, and this goes through, according to the charging documents, Singer facilitated cheating on the SAT and ACT exams for his clients by instructing them to seek extended time for their children on college entrance exams, which included having the children purport to have learning disabilities in order to obtain the required medical documentation. Once the extended time was granted, Singer allegedly instructed the clients to change the location of the exams to one of two test centers, a public high school in Houston, Texas, or a private college preparatory school in West Hollywood, California. At those test centers, Singer had established relationships with test administrators, Nikki Williams and Igor Dvorsky, respectively, who accepted bribes of as much as $10,000 per test in order to facilitate the cheating scheme. Specifically, Williams and Dvorsky allowed a third individual, typically Rydell, to take the exams in place of the students, to give the students the correct answers during the exams, or to correct the students' answers after they completed the exams. Singer typically paid Rydell $10,000 for each student's test. Singer's clients paid him between $15,000 and $75,000 per test, with the payments structured as purported donations to the KWF charity. In many instances, the students taking the exams were unaware that their parents had arranged for the cheating. I mean, okay. So anyway, it goes on, and there was the college recruitment scheme. This was the one with athletics. And so they would, Singer allegedly described the scheme to his customers as a side door in which the parents paid Singer under the guise of charitable donations to KWF. In turn, Singer funneled those payments to programs controlled by the athletic coaches, who then designated the children as recruited athletes, regardless of their athletic experience and abilities. Singer also made bribe payments to most of the coaches personally. And so here it is. I mean, it lays it out pretty well. And then, of course, the tax fraud comes with that charitable donation and contributions. So that one was pretty obvious. Anyway, if you go down here, then there's this appendix, which tells who the people were that were charged. And you can go through and see what their charges were. I mean, former sailing coach, the former head women's soccer coach. Yeah, lots of them in there. And then just the whole list. I mean, the whole list is here if you want to go through and see it. And then down here it gets further, and some of them, like this one, is conspiracy to commit mail fraud and honest services mail fraud. So you have that. These are a lot of the parents that participated, pretty big names, and owning some big companies, you know, founder and CEO of real estate development firm and fashion designer. And so if you go through, yeah, actors, of course, you've heard that. A few names they picked out because those were the names you probably knew about, like Lori Loughlin. And so there they are. These are the people that are all charged. There's 50 of them. I mean, that's quite a bit. Now, what I found interesting, here are documents you can download if you really wanted to read through them. They do have some indictments here. What I thought was really interesting was this one, because this one is redacted. And if you go here, see, it says it was sealed. And then you have, and this is conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud. And I don't know if this guy's name is Sidoo or Sidoo. I'm going to call him Sidoo. So if I'm wrong, oops, sorry. Anyway, this is redacted, and I thought this was very interesting. He was from Canada, by the way, and he has 2 sons. But then they redact this, this, and this. Now, if it's redacted, that could mean that those things are part of a pending case that may still be sealed. So it may be somebody that they haven't arrested yet, but they are still gathering evidence perhaps, or whatever the case, the reason is probably that it's still sealed, and so they couldn't reveal this information that might have tied him to more people that they're still investigating. And then it tells about the ACT, and it goes through and lists all of these. And of course, they have all the different indications about the test. I want to take you down. Notice again, there's more redactions, but these tend to be, I think these are for a specific name. So again, if it's a name, it could be that there's another indictment that is sealed that they just haven't unsealed yet. So that could possibly be the reason. And when you go through this, you see all the different things that they're doing. I mean, these numbers are pretty big. $100,000. Wow. Can you imagine $100,000 to take an SAT test? Oh, wow. I could have made money. I like taking tests, actually. I was one of those weird people. So anyway, if you go through and, you know, paid more money, purchased plane tickets to fly them, and, you know, it just posed as his older son in order to secretly take the Canadian high school graduation exam in his place. I mean, it's like, really? Come on. If your kid is not that smart, then you need to hire tutors. Don't you understand how important education is? The paper chase is not what's important. capturing your name on some kind of document is not the important part. It's having the knowledge of what that represents. That's what's really important. And if you are going to go to one of those high-end schools, then you really should be fighting for that education, because that is the part that's going to change your life. It is not that you just went to that school so you hobnobbed with all the famous people. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to get you an education so you have that knowledge base. And that's why people should want to get into these big name schools. But of course now it's a big prestige thing. Number 49. On or about October 25th, 2018, this person called Sidoo from Boston, Massachusetts. In the call, Sidoo noted that his older son was applying to business school, adding, "I thought you were going to call me and say I got a 2100 on my GMAT." Well, the GMAT, a reference to a standardized test that is widely used as part of the business school admissions process, which is scored on a scale of 200 to 800. Anyway, this person responded, "They don't have a 2100 for the GMAT, but I would do my best to get it for you." Oh, oh, really? Seriously? Don't get this person into a big name school if they don't even know that much. Oh, it makes my head hurt. So anyway, I wanted to bring this to your attention, and it's, if you're really into reading court documents, you'll find this fascinating, I'm sure. But I just thought that I would point out that this particular one is redacted, and I don't know why, but to me that would indicate that probably somebody else has not been arrested yet, and this person had contact with them. So, who knows? Or maybe theirs was the first one unsealed, and then the rest came later. I'm not sure. But there are several of them. There's a big bunch of them, 50. So you can go through and you can look at those, see if you know any of them. I'm not that familiar. I knew the couple of actresses, and that was pretty much it. But there are several. And there are some rumors that maybe Obama's two daughters, one of their mentors was involved in this. So that has not been confirmed. I'm just putting it out there so I can give you that information. If it is confirmed, believe me, I'll let you know. There could be something to that. And we also know from previous Q posts that Obama did not pay for his own education at Harvard, and that the Saudi Arabia al-Wali did that for him. So that is interesting as well. Anyway, I wanted to point this out to you and let you know what's going on in the Department of Justice. It's always interesting to go there. And like I said, when I go there, I get just the facts. And I don't have to worry about, well, this spin or that spin. It's just they're saying, this is what's going on, folks. This is what they're going to be prosecuted for. We have already indicted them. So, yeah, things are happening. This I could foresee having some reach into many of the elites, especially like the Hollywood elites, because it's very important in their eyes to get their child into a good school. Again, I'm not big on the paper chase. I'm big on the education, because frankly, if I'm going to have a surgeon operating on me, I don't care how rich he is. I don't care who he is. I just want to know that he's skilled. And that's what concerns me, that we have a lot of people who have the degrees after their name, but they don't have the knowledge to match the degrees. So, like I said, that's what kind of concerns me. I would much rather have somebody who doesn't necessarily have the degree, but who has the skill and the knowledge, than somebody who was clueless but had the degree. So, anyway, and somebody who doesn't know that the GMAT doesn't even have 2100. That was funny. So, that's what I've got for you today. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I will see you all later.